And this is what it looks like from the front, and this is what it looks like from the back. And next we're going to take this section 2 that we just sewed on, and we're going to press it just like this. Press it away from the seam line. So now we're ready to piece section 3. And to get to section 3, we have to sew and fold on line 2. This is the point where a lot of students, especially new students in my classes, get a little confused, and because there's so many steps, and what order do you do them in? And a lot of times I'll come by their desk and I'll see that they've got it like this, they've just pressed it, everything's so pretty, they're excited, but they look at this and they think, okay, what do I do next? I'm totally lost. And when you're in this situation, the first thing you should do is ask yourself this question: can I read it? So obviously there's nothing to be read on this side of the paper. If we consider it like a road map, you wouldn't read your road map like this. You would turn it over, and here's my road map, so there's plenty to read on here. So the next thing you do is you look, and you've stitched on line 1, so then you want to find line 2, and you see that you haven't stitched on line 2. And sometimes the thread will blend in, so I just rub my finger along the line and I know, okay, line 2 is next, so that must mean I need to do section 3. And also you can look at the top of your stack and you see that the next section is section 3, so you know that's what you're going to do next. So here starts all of the repetition, and you're going to do every other section in this unit the exact same way from section 3 on to section 9. So we start again. We've already pressed, so now we're going to start on line 2 with our fold template, and we're going to fold back paper and fabric. So we have the fabric we just sewed plus the other fabric, and you'll see that it's stitched here, but we need it to lay flat. So we just pull this, and it tears the paper just a little bit right here, but it exposes all the fabric so we can trim it off, because you always want it flat. So you take your 1/4 ruler and you trim. So we're going to turn this horizontal to us again, and we're going to look at section 3. Here's our sew side up here. So we make our sew side horizontal and parallel to each other. We can check our angles. Here's the left angle, this side angle, this straight angle. All of them are the same. This is the outside line. If you drew a line here, you would have this line. So you can see all these angles line up. You can move the paper out of the way. We'll move our section 3 down. We'll pick it up and match the top edges, and let's check to see if we have it placed right. If you look, this is the outside line, and we need to have this outside line covered. We can barely see the white fabric underneath. We know it's going to cover it, but we want to make sure we have more wiggle room. If you look and put your template on this side over here, this side line, and we fold this, we see we have a ton of fabric here. So we could easily just pick this up and reposition it. Just move it over a little bit. So now you see we have plenty of fabric on this side and this side. We've matched our angles on this side, and if we flip this over, we have plenty of fabric on that side. So this is ready to piece. And we'll take our stack, make another stack on our little ruler like this. This is another place where many of the students get a little bit confused, and let me show you how to fix this. They'll go through and they'll cut, they'll fold, pull back the fabric, and cut. And then they will look at this fabric here, and this is why I always tell them to move it off the stack. they'll look at this fabric here and they'll think, okay, where does it go? I'm going to put it right up here. And it does fit all the shape, that's correct. But there's no way there's no way once you turn it over like this, that fabric is gone. So always remind yourself that the paper goes on top of the fabric. You're always working with your paper. You always want your paper to be visible except for when you press. So don't do this. Do this. Always pick up the paper and lay it on your fabric piece on the board. And here you can do your checks again. I see plenty of fabric here, and I know there's going to be plenty of fabric here. So we continue and just laying them this way. Take the next one, lay it horizontal, fold, tear the fabric back, trim, take the template out, bring this fabric down, place it on, line up the top edges, check for your fabric underneath. I'm going to move that over a little bit. There's too close and I have plenty of room. So now I have enough fabric. Lay it here. This is our final piece. Fold on line 2, pull the fabric back, add a quarter ruler, and trim. And we place the fabric on top, and we have plenty of room there, and stack it. So you'll take this to your machine, and next you'll open it up, and you'll start on line 2, which is underneath this, just a little bit off of line 2, and then stitch right on line 2 and a little bit off of line 2. And I'll show you that. Alright, here we are again. We've just stitched section 3 fabric onto the paper, and we're admiring our work after we've pressed it. Now here are a few things I want to show you to look out for. If you'll notice, this edge here is a straight edge, which matches the straight edge of the unit. It's straight there, so this fabric is straight. This one we can't tell right now how it's going to end, but if we look at this piece, section 3, you see it has a squared off edge here that matches the squared off edge of the paper. And all of the templates will be like that. So if you're pressing and you end up with something really jaggedy or it doesn't come off the edge right, then you know something's wrong. Either you're using the wrong section fabric or you've placed it on the paper wrong. So just be sure that, kind of check that. And sometimes it'll be over more or over less, but as long as the shape matches, then you know you've got the right thing and you know you've got good coverage. Another thing you can do is you can hold this up. If you want to make sure you've covered everything, you should hold this up to the light, and you can see that through the paper that if it's covering it or not. And here you can tell it's stitched here. I know it's covered plenty there, so when I trim this off, it'll trim off nicely. So I wanted to show you something else too that sometimes the students get confused over. So here you are, you've pressed it and you're admiring your work, and you get confused again, and so you ask yourself, oh, can I read it? No, I can't. I better turn it over. Yes, I can read this. And here's something they will do sometimes. Here is line 3. Okay, I know I need to do line 3 next. Let me just see. Let me just turn it over like this and put my fold template on here, and now I'm going to fold it. But look what we've done. We have all this paper. We can't tear all this back and cut it. It's crazy. Something is not right here. So what's wrong with this? So if you look at it, so not only can you read the words on it, the line you're working on, you should be able to read the words line 3 with them right side up, not upside down. So if you flip this around and you make line 3 horizontal to yourself, and you put the template on line 3 and you fold it back, and then you tear the fabric back. Then you have something nice to cut on. So there's your next cut line, is line 3. And now you continue. So we look at section 3, and here's my little swatches over here. So I know that my next one, section 4, is going to be this red fabric. So now we look, these were cut from the same template, template G, and it does have a sew side written on it. But for section 1, when we did this blue fabric in section 1, we ignored that. Normally, all of your section 1 templates will not have a sew side printed on it. But since we're using this template for everything, all of the triangles, they do include a sew side. So for section 1, if there is a sew side printed on it, you can just ignore it, usually. But for the others, we won't. So here we have trimmed line 3, and we'll take the sew side, and it goes like this. And you'll notice that all the fabrics we've put on the papers after section 1 have been right sides up, just as you cut them. So we place the template down here. We'll do some house cleaning over here. Make it horizontal. Make these parallel. So here is our triangle, and here is our triangle. So what I do is I kind of line up these tips. I line up these tips, and I put it straight up just like this, and line up those edges. And we can tell over here we have plenty of fabric, and over here we have plenty of fabric. So this one is ready to piece. So let me just do the other 3. I can read line 3, it's horizontal. I fold it, I tear the paper back, use my add a quarter ruler. Take my fabric, line up the arrows, or the points, and then stack it. Line 3, fold, tear back the paper, trim, place the fabric, and the last one. Now, I'm going to sew all of these, all the rest of the units, so you can see what it looks like when it's finished. Now, I've gotten to the very last section, section 9, and I wanted to show another hint to you. When you have really long pieces like this, sometimes it's hard to keep it in place. So once we lay the fabric, the paper on top, and we've checked all of our fabric is, there's enough fabric underneath, you can take your glue pen and just lift up the top fabric, and we're going to place a little bit of glue on the bottom fabric, just in several places all the way down. Get that over. And this is enough to hold that fabric in place like this, so you don't have to worry about it coming off. Once you bring it to the machine, you can just lay it down, open it up, and stitch. Alright, now we have our completed paper pieced unit, the front and the back, and there are some things I wanted to point out to you. First, here are all the lines. All of the sew lines are on the lines, the solid lines marked line 1, line 2, line 3, etc. And I want you to look at the geese and the accent fabrics here, section 1, 4, and 7, how the geese are kind of going to the left. But over here the geese are going to the right because you're working on the back side when you're looking at this. So you always have to turn it over to see which way it's going. So probably this unit is called unit CZR for the geese going to the right, and there is another unit called CZL where the flying geese would go to the left in the completed block. So I wanted you to notice too that how these edges, here are those straight edges like I was telling you about before, and see it's a little wonky here, but that's fine. But they will follow, the outside edges will follow the papers. So the next thing we do is we're going to trim this, and I use I Love My Quilting Friends ruler, and I place this this 1/4 inch line, dashed line, on the inside line, and then I know I have an accurate 1/4 inch. So I just line it up and I trim. Line it up and trim. Oops. Always gotta miss something. Last one. Okay. So here's our finished unit. Once we trim all the units, we can take the paper off, and I always start with the very last one, so section 9. I put my thumb here and just tear away. You don't have to worry too much about the little pieces, but you can if you want. And then tear the next one, section 8, section 7, 6, 5. This is where it gets tricky, these little points. 4, 3, 2, 1. So, since I used the red threads, you can see nice 1/4 inch seams all around. But there's your finished product. And then when you sew them together, you'll just put the 2 units together and stitch a 1/4 inch seam. If you'd like to stitch along with this video, check the information at the bottom of this video for a link to go to my website. You can order the papers, the newsprint papers from Quiltworx, to make this project. And you'll also receive instructions to make this into a pillow. Thank you for watching.